Pete Hegseth intervened with military promotions when it came to black and female officers. Baby, I got one thing to say. This is blatant racism.
Nearly 60% of senior officers Hegseth has fired are female or black. So he's at it again. We're talking about Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth apparently blocking the promotions of black and female Navy officers. And this is coming from the New York Times right here. Now, the decision to block the officers' promotions appears driven by his anti-diversity stance rather than based on merit. So what does this list look like? No female officers are included on the new one-star list. Women make up 21% of active duty Navy. Only 2 non-white officers, racial minorities, make up 38% of active duty Navy. Now, some people will point out that 3 white men were taken off the list as well. But when you look at the big picture, and you have to look at the big picture right up here.
So Trump doesn't want to stand next to female officers, especially black female officers.
Pete Hegseth might be uniquely skilled at staying in some bullshit, y'all. So the tea today is that he blocked the promotions of 2 female and 2 black Army officers against the objections of senior leadership.
So Pete, I'll do a line every time Hegseth has blocked 4 minority officers from receiving promotion. This motherfucking DEI hire in the way of people who actually deserve military promotions because they've actually been in the fucking military. I'm sorry, let me calm down. These 4 individuals, 2 women and 2 black men, were set to be promoted to 1-star general. And Petey Boy spent months trying to get them removed from their promotion. You mean to tell me what they've earned?
They want to erase us from every level of power in this country. They already are doing it politically with the redistricting so that black people don't have representation.
The New York Times is reporting that Pete Hegseth personally struck from the naval promotion list for officer names that were black and or female, which made it so that despite the fact that the Navy is about 21% women and about 38% people of color, when those promotions came through, that black and or female names were not included.
Pete Hegseth is facing intense backlash once again, and this time, black people are asking whether qualified black and female military officers are like being pushed aside while others are being favored. And the allegations coming out of, recent reporting have sparked outrage across social media, and many people are pointing fingers not only at Pete Hegseth but also at Donald Trump as the president and his administration, like the MAGA people. Some black voices believe that what they are saying is part of a much bigger pattern, a pattern they see like something that raises serious questions about representation, about fairness, about who gets access to positions of power. Now, these claims have ignited a heated debate across America, and the reactions from many black people, black Americans, have been emotional, passionate, and impossible to ignore. And yeah, I like that. It's always good to, come up and speak whenever you study some patterns of racism, some patterns of, segregation. And that's the best part. Black people, they are good people in terms of, they are good at knowing, that this is a sign of discrimination, because they have gone through that. Nobody can cheat them. Nobody can discriminate them without them knowing. So what exactly is happening here? Why are so many people furious? Why are, some black people saying, all these things about Pete Hegseth? Anyway, let's dive into this together. But before we do, if this is your first time to come to this channel, please, I kindly ask you to subscribe and turn on notifications and join the conversation. Otherwise, for now, let's dive into this and see what are the black people trying to say, and then we can have discussion at the end.
And this is the best story and encapsulation of what I believe has happened in this country in response to what has been defined as wokeism or DEI. Because DEI was meant to look at black people, indigenous people, people of color, women, queer folks, trans folks, etc., who have worked hard, who are highly educated and qualified, but are not getting access to opportunities because of the gatekeepers that have kept them out and made those spaces exclusively white, that those folks who are qualified should get opportunities. But what white folks heard and saw when they saw women and people of color in these spots was underqualified folks. But somehow they never seemed to see white folks as underqualified, as is evidenced by the fact that Pete Hegseth is the least qualified Secretary of Defense in modern history. He does not hold the ranking, nor the experience, nor the education to be in that position. But in that position, not only is he the unqualified white man in that position, but he has demoted and fired and gotten rid of black people, indigenous people, people of color, women, trans folks, queer folks in the naval and military ranks as a whole. He has also withheld the promotion of BIPOC and women and LGBTQ folks in order to ensure that they cannot progress and move forward. And then he's tried to root out wokeism in the Army policy and the military policy as a whole. And so it's important to recognize that the anti-woke crowd really does not believe structurally what they say that they believe. What they believe in is white supremacy. And to them, whiteness is intelligence. Whiteness is qualification. And they will hire somebody based on the color of their skin rather than the content of their character or their credentials. Because if it was about content of character or credentials, then Pete Hegseth would not have the position because he doesn't have the character nor the credentials to be in that spot. But if we're being honest, neither does Donald Trump. And yet somehow white folks in this country decided to elect Donald Trump, who was not having the character or credentials to be president, over a well-qualified black woman. And so while this story is a clear example of the racism and the bigotry that is Pete Hegseth, it's also a showcase of what black folks in this country are up against. Is that white folks are not just out here trying to win, they're trying to destroy us and relegate us to second-class citizenry again, like the good old days. But the reality is their incompetence will destroy them, because that lack of decorum, that lack of character, that lack of credential will catch up. And we're seeing it on full display in the billions of dollars that we're wasting in a war that Pete Hegseth is overseeing. Because the reality is one day Pete Hegseth will be in prison for the war crimes that he has committed and for the atrocities that he is overseeing. And when that happens, I believe in that day he will no longer believe in maximum lethality. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
They want to erase us from every level of power in this country. They already are doing it politically with the redistricting so that black people don't have representation. They are also doing it in the military. Now, this is the latest time that Pete Hegseth has done this. It's not the only time that he's done it. According to this article, he removed 3 women, 2 black men, and 4 white men, and there is a list of 22 one-star admirals. And there are no women on that list of 22 one-star admirals. And we know Pete Hegseth does not believe women should serve in the military. And let me just tell you how the people are chosen for these promotions. And I'm just going to read from the article. Officers selected for one-star rank are chosen by a board of admirals or generals who review hundreds of personnel files over the course of meetings that can span 2 weeks. Only about 5% of those eligible for promotion to one-star are chosen, making it the most competitive board in the military. The lists are then reviewed by the service secretaries and the defense secretary, who under Pentagon rules may strike names in limited circumstances, like the emergence of new information that raises questions about officers' qualifications for service. This process is supposed to be fair and apolitical, but according to this article, because of Pete Hegseth's unpredictable actions, people are anxious and there's a lot of mistrust. I also read that when this happens to you in the military, your career is basically over. You all let me know what you think about this in the comments.
Pete Hegseth intervened with military promotions when it came to black and female officers. Baby, I got one thing to say. This is blatant racism. And if you can't see that, then, as I always say, something is wrong with you. A Fox News host, he used to be a Fox News host. And baby, they gave him a little bit of power and he just think that he can do whatever he wants. But baby, I know another thing. I can't wait to see his trial on TV, whenever that might be. And then you have people saying, oh no, they're not racist, baby, they are. Because this is nothing but discrimination and it's blatant racism. And how people can't see that, then baby, y'all need to wake up. But that's okay. I hope they sue, because that's exactly what it is. Racism.
Pete Hegseth might be uniquely skilled at staying in some bullshit, y'all. So the tea today is that he blocked the promotions of 2 female and 2 black Army officers against the objections of senior leadership. This reporting is from the New York Times. So apparently these 4 Army officers were up to get promoted to be a 1-star general. Senior officials in the Army were fully supportive of this because these officers had decades of exemplary service in the Army. And apparently Pete Hegseth stepped in, did not like the idea of them being promoted, and he took them off the promotion list himself. And everyone was very confused about why he did that, because these officers had so much service, people supported them, and it felt like they were targeted because of their gender and their race. Duh. And this is one wild part of the report from New York Times. They say that Hegseth's chief of staff told one of the officers that President Trump would not want to stand next to a black female officer at military events. And apparently the person he said this to was just shook and was like, the president is not a racist or sexist. Delusional right there. But anyways, he was shook. He was not happy about that exchange, and he raised the issue with a senior White House official. Now, Hegseth's chief of staff is trying to claim that this conversation never happened, but it is very on brand for them, and we all know that everyone in the administration is a lying piece of shit. So I personally 100% believe this happened.
So Trump doesn't want to stand next to female officers, especially black female officers, according to the New York Times. So Pete Hegseth had 4 women, including 2 black women, removed from the promotions list. Not only is this highly unusual, but it may not even be legal. Hegseth had been pressuring Secretary Driscoll to remove these women from the promotions list for months, but he refused to because he said that there was no reason for them to be removed. Hegseth's chief of staff told Driscoll that Trump did not want to stand next to black officers at events. So Hegseth himself just went in and removed them from this list. When he told us that he didn't want women in the military and everyone said, oh, he can't just do that, this is how he does it. He makes it so uncomfortable and so difficult for them to climb the ranks and get promotions that women will start to leave the military. He has created an unsafe environment for women in the military. Not that it wasn't already, but he's made it worse. And now he's making it harder for them to achieve promotions, simply because they're women. And more importantly, black women. Hegseth is deeply afraid of women because he knows that they're smarter and stronger than him.
You may remember a year ago when, shortly after returning to the White House, Donald Trump fired several high-ranking military service members who, let's say, just happened to be black and women. They included the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that's a big deal, the chief of naval operations, and the U.S. representative to NATO. There was no reason to think any of them had done anything wrong with their duties. Well, today, the New York Times is out with explosive new reporting that gives a little insight into the decisions being made at the Pentagon. The Times reports that this month, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is, quote, unilaterally blocking the promotion of 4 Army officers to be 1-star generals, something it's not even clear he has the legal authority to do. It's really, really irregular. The Times explained that 2 of the officers targeted by Hegseth are black and 2 are women. They all had, quote, decades-long records of exemplary service. But Hegseth removed them from a promotion list that consists of about 36 officers, most of whom are white men. The Times is reporting, based on interviews with 11 current and former military officials, 3 of them told the Times about a dust-up last summer. Listen to this. It was between Hegseth's chief of staff, Ricky Burria, and the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll. Now, the Times reports, quote, that Burria chastised the Army Secretary for selecting Major General Antoinette Gant, a combat engineer who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, to take command of the military district of Washington, located there in D.C. Burria told Driscoll that President Trump would not want to stand next to a black female officer at military events. I'm going to repeat that. According to the Times, the chief of staff to the Secretary of Defense told the Secretary of the Army that the President of the United States would not want to stand next to a black woman officer at military events. Now, in that one case last year, the Times reports that Driscoll argued with Burria that, quote, The president is not a racist or sexist. Let you be the judge of that. But General Grant did ultimately get the promotion. The same right now cannot be said for the other 4 this month.
Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, has been caught striking the promotions of black and female service officers in the United States Navy. New York Times reporting confirmed that several admirals in the United States Navy were up for promotion to be 1-star admirals. This was handpicked by a board of senior admirals. Pete Hegseth went in, removed all of the women from the slate that were selected, and most minority candidates from the slate as well. As a result, the slate of 1-star admirals up for promotion include no women, despite women making up 21% of the United States Navy, and only 2 non-white officers, despite the Navy being 38% minority. Pete Hegseth personally removed 2 black male officers and 2 female officers from promotion. And according to the New York Times, which spoke to several folks in the know, Hegseth's essentially removal of these officers from promotion appeared to violate Pentagon rules. I'll have more updates for you very soon. As always, spread the word. Follow along for more.
Pete Hegseth removed 3 qualified women and 2 qualified African Americans from a nonpartisan list recommended for promotion to admiral. Why did he do this? He did it simply because they participated in diversity and inclusion initiatives. Pete Hegseth has engaged in rank sexism and racism. Of the 22 promotions, there's not a single woman. And there are only now 2 African Americans, even though 38% of the force is African American. Hegseth needs to resign.
Now, as I was listening to the conversation, hearing from every speaker, I think there's one thing that becomes very clear here. I don't know what you observed, but I can see that many black Americans are not looking at this story as a, ordinary or, some isolated incident. No, instead they are, connecting it to what they believe is like much larger pattern that have been, developing for years, Now, according to the reporting, several black female military officers were removed from promotion lists despite having strong records of service, like good service in the military. And for a lot of people, that is where the questions begin. That is where they are trying to connect the dots to see if this happens to black people. I think maybe something is not okay. Now, I know supporters of the administration may argue that these personnel decisions are based on merit, they are based on qualification or policy like priorities, but many black commentators say they are seeing something completely different. To them, something is off. They believe these actions fit into like a broader effort to reduce the visibility and influence of black people, influence of black community, black Americans and women in positions of authority, like in the most important positions. And that belief is driving much of the outrage we are trying to see right now. Now, one of the most controversial parts of this entire story involves allegations that this President Donald Trump would not want to stand next to black female officer at military events. Now, whether that allegation is ultimately proven true or disputed later, I think is something like a separate question. But many black Americans say that simply hearing such a claim does not shock them. That's what they're trying to say. I mean, that alone says a lot about the level of distrust that already exists. Black people have lost trust in white people. So whenever something like this happens, even if there were clear reasons for real reasons, tangible reasons for removing these black people, still as black people, they will connect the dots because they know their history. Now, in their view, this allegation aligns with the concerns they have had for years regarding race, regarding representation, regarding the treatment of black professionals in powerful institutions. So, for many black observers, I think this issue goes far beyond 4 military promotions. They see this story as something which is like a symbol of a much bigger struggle. They argue that black Americans have spent generations fighting for access to opportunities that were once completely closed to them. Because of that history, they believe like every promotion, every leadership role, every position influence really matters. It really matters. Why? Remember, we're trying to say these black people, these black women have good records of service, and they can do it, they can do it. Qualification wise, they can do it. So when highly qualified black officers appear to be like passed over, many do not see as a mere coincidence, okay, as something which has just happened by chance. No, instead they see evidence that barriers may be returning in new forms, like segregation is just coming in new form, like racism is just coming in new form, slavery is coming like in new form. That is exactly why emotions are running so high. Now, another major focus of this conversation involves like black women. Many commentators argue that black women often face a double challenge. What is that? Okay, they must navigate issues related to race, and at the same time deal with issues related to gender. Okay, so as black women, gender issues, also race. That's like double challenge I'm like observing. So from that perspective, allegations involving black female officers are especially so troublesome. I can put it that way. Now, they touch on the long-standing concerns about whether black women receive the same recognition, the same respect, the same advancement opportunities as other people, and many people believe that that concern deserves serious attention. Okay, it's not something we should overlook. It needs serious attention. But that is not the only issue being discussed in this video in as far as I was observing. You see, many black voices are also talking about the larger debate surrounding diversity initiatives. They argue that the opposition to diversity programs has gone beyond the criticisms of specific policies. Instead, they believe it has increasingly become like the opposition toward the people who benefited from those programs, and that is where the conversation becomes even more complicated. Some black commentators argue that when discussions about the DEI take place, qualified black professionals are sometimes automatically viewed with some sort of they become suspicious. Okay, they're viewed with suspicion, I can just put it that way. Now, as though their achievements came from favoritism rather than talent, discipline, and hard work. Remember, we are saying these black people have good records of service. Okay, I mean, just think about that for a moment. Imagine spending decades building a career, working, trying to behave in the military, doing all it takes. You have good education, reaching the highest levels of performance, and still having people question whether you truly earned your place. I mean, just look at that. That is a frustration many black Americans say they understand it very well. Some voices go even further than that. They argue that what is happening reflects a belief, okay, that that leadership positions should primarily be occupied by white men. We're not trying to now mark that by white men, not just men. Like, we don't want these female or black people because they are female, but they are because they are black. So it is somehow that if they want it to be like for black men. They point to controversies involving promotions. They point to removal of certain officials, okay, black officials. They point to criticism of diversity efforts as evidence supporting that concern. Now, whether everyone agrees with that interpretation, I think that's another matter entirely. That is undeniably a perspective that exists within portions of black community. I don't know what's your take on this. And for me, I feel like it's something that helps explain the intensity of the reactions we're witnessing today about black people trying to complain about what Pete Hegseth and President Donald Trump are doing. There is also a deeply emotional element to this entire discussion. Many black Americans are looking at this story through a lens of history. Like I say, whatever happens, people will always look back and say, if it happened again, if it happened in the past, they don't want it to happen again. So the only way to avoid something happening again is when you don't forget what happened in the past. Okay, so for black people, they think about segregation. They think about, exclusion from military leadership positions. They think about voting rights struggles. They think about, decades of fighting for equal treatment. I can put it that way. And because of that historical memory, Some people believe progress can never be taken for granted. They worry that the gains, okay, made over generations, made over throughout the years, could slowly be weakened, could slowly be like just fade away, right? Especially if representation in powerful institutions begin to decline. You know, black people fought, okay, they fought a good fight to find themselves in a good position like this. But when they look at what is happening, yeah, it's something which is so shocking, right? And for many people, that possibility feels like alarming. Now, it is important to recognize that not every black person views this issue in like exactly the same way. Some, even black people, some people, okay, even blacks, they argue that decisions should be evaluated based on evidence rather than just assumptions. Others believe that accusations of racism should always be supported by clear proof. And there are, you know, certain black voices calling for like caution before reaching conclusion. I hope you get what I mean. But I know it really, what matters is how you view this thing as a black person or as a white person, as a woman or as a man. But even among those cautious perspectives, I think concerns remain about transparency, okay? They remain about like fairness, okay? Concerns remain about how promotion decisions are being made. And what stands out most to me is the level of distrust and that is like reflected throughout these reactions, throughout these black people's voices. Because many black commentators are not simply debating military promotion. No, they're asking much broader questions like, are black Americans truly being judged by their qualification? Is it on merit? Okay, or race and the identity still influencing who gets opportunities and who does not? So there is that question. Is it about merit? Like, I'm qualified, okay, I perform well, then I deserve promotion, or my skin color prevents me from getting that? So that question sits at the center of the entire controversy, and honestly, I think it may be the reason this story has resonated like so strongly with so many people, especially in the black community. And as an African observer listening to black Americans discuss these events, I feel, yeah, I hear frustration. I hear some sort of disappointment, and it really makes sense. I hear genuine concern about the future, whether someone agrees with every claim being made here or not. But it is important to understand why so many black voices are reacting to this strongly, why they're taking it, you know, they know. Okay, it's something they have fought, like I said, they have fought a good fight to find themselves in good positions. Now, when they look at like trying to, these things that they have fought to get is trying to be lost, yeah, you can react. You can react. Because from their perspective as black people, this is not just about military promotions. This is not just about politics. And this is not just about like one administration. For them, this conversation is about representation. It's about fairness. It's about dignity as a human being, okay? As people, are they still valued as people? It's about equal opportunity as people, whether you are white, whether you are black, whether you are a man or you are a woman. But your qualification and your performance on duty should be the first key decision making, you know, tool, okay, on whether you should be promoted or not. Perhaps I hope I think I can just put it like that. Okay, it is about it's something which is about you know the doors that previous generations fought so hard to open will remain open for future generations. That's the concern. Okay, that's the concern. You have your own children. You fought a good fight to find yourself in a good position. Now, before you die, before you are gone from this earth, you have young kids. Now you are having that concern. Are these kids going to find the freedom which I fought for? Or as soon as I go, my children will have to fight for themselves. Something which doesn't matter, which doesn't make sense. Okay? It doesn't really make sense. So that's what I'm looking at. Like for these black people, they have a reason to be worried, to be concerned. Because it's something they have struggled to get. It shouldn't be lost easily. What's your take on this? Let's discuss in the comment section. Are you black? Are you white? Man, woman? How do you look at this? Because I feel like as a black man, as a white man, or as a white a white woman, as a black woman, I think we can look at this differently. So let me know your view. Let me know your angle in this. Otherwise, I love that you came to watch the video. Don't forget to like, to subscribe if this is your first time. Otherwise, I'm glad you came to watch the video. See you next time.